Former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi is part of Donald Trump's legal defense team in the impeachment trial. And it's important to remember that Pam Bondi dropped an investigation into Trump University after the Trump Foundation gave her campaign $25,000. Okay, then later on she got caught and tried to return that money, but just important context. Well, now she's part of Trump's defense team, and she decided to regurgitate the same talking point that we've heard over and over again in regard to Burry Smih and how the Bidens are the real corrupt ones that we should be investigating. Take a look.
In Ukraine, there's a natural gas company called Burry Smih. Burry Smih has been owned by an oligarch named Mykola Zlochevsky. Here's what happened very shortly after Vice President Biden was made US point man for Ukraine. His son, Hunter Biden, ends up on the board of Burry Smih, working for and paid by the oligarch Zlochevsky. In February 2014, in the wake of anti-corruption uprising by the people of Ukraine, Zlochevsky flees the country, flees Ukraine. Zlochevsky, the oligarch, is well known. George Kent, the very first witness that the Democrats called during their public hearings, testified Zlochevsky stood out for his self-dealings even among other oligarchs. House managers didn't tell you that. Ambassador Kurt Volkler explained that Burry Smih had a, quote, very bad reputation as a company for corruption and money laundering.
So what's fascinating about the repeated accusations against the Bidens is that there are new revelations about bipartisan efforts in order to hold that prosecutor that Biden allegedly fired accountable, because that prosecutor himself was corrupt. So this was a letter that was written by both Republicans and Democrats in the lead up to firing that Ukrainian prosecutor. Let me give you the details. Republican senators echoed Biden in urging Ukrainian president to reform Prosecutor General's office. Then you look into the details of it, and a February 2016 bipartisan letter signed by several Republican senators that urged then Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to press ahead with urgent reforms to the Prosecutor General's office and judiciary. The letter shows that addressing corruption in Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office had bipartisan support in the US and further undercuts a baseless attack made by President Donald Trump and his allies that Biden pressured the Ukrainian government to fire then Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, to stop investigations into a Ukrainian natural gas company that his son, Hunter Biden, sat on the board of. Okay, so Democrats and Republicans, I'll tell you the names of the individuals who signed that letter in just a second. But it's incredible because this letter is unearthed, and we know that there were both Democrats and Republicans who wanted this prosecutor out because the prosecutor himself was corrupt and wasn't doing the proper investigation into Burry Smih.
Okay, so this is a great point on the substance of Ukraine, but Pam Bondi, we're talking about corruption. You heard what Anna said before you watched the video. There's two layers of that corruption. So Pam Bondi said to reporters that she was considering filing a lawsuit against Trump University because it was a scam, and it turns out it was a scam, and Trump had to admit that and pay a settlement later.
$22 million settlement.
So that's when she was the Attorney General in Florida. So then 4 days later, just 4 days later, the Trump Foundation, which should be giving charity, not political donations. The Trump Foundation then sends her a $25,000 check, and she immediately drops the case. I mean, Pam, you're talking about corruption? That's the conversation you're having. So I had Alex Gibney on the show, and you should check it out on The Conversation. He's a legendary film documentarian. He's got a new movie out, Citizen K. It's about how Putin does corruption in Russia, and how he targeted Khodorkovsky, who was the richest man in Russia. And I asked him, do people in Russia actually think that democracy is real and they're having real elections when Putin arrests all of his political opponents and there is no real democracy there? He said, yeah, it's amazing what they get people to believe. And Putin once, you remember that clip where he played the Russian national hockey team and he scored 5 goals? And he looked comically old. And he was like so slow going around, and then he would score, and the goalie would go, "Oh my God," and they would let the puck go through. But and why do I bring that up? Because the lies are so brazen and they still get people to believe it. And it's part of how propaganda works. Make the lie even more outrageous, so nothing seems unbelievable. So to have Pam Bondi talking about corruption, when the only reason she's a lawyer on Trump's case is because she got bribed by Trump to the tune of $25,000 and dropped a criminal case against him. It's like Putin scoring 5 goals on the Russian national hockey team. It's unbelievable. It's so unbelievable that even some of the national media said, "Oh, that does look like corruption." By the way, whenever anybody gets a $25,000 check from anybody in politics, it's usually corruption.
Yes. So who signed this letter, right? Asking for this prosecutor to be fired. Again, Democrats and Republicans. The 2016 letter sent by members of the Senate Ukraine caucus was signed by Republican senators Rob Portman, Mark Kirk, and Ron Johnson, as well as Democratic senators Dick Durbin, Jeanne Shaheen, Chris Murphy, Sherrod Brown, and Richard Blumenthal, and focused on longstanding issues of corruption in Ukraine and urged reforms of the government. What's amazing, though, is the pathetic way that those Republicans have handled this impeachment trial, because they are also regurgitating these nonsense talking points about the Bidens. Johnson signed onto a letter with Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley last week to Attorney General William Barr, asking him to investigate, in part, allegations surrounding Biden and Ukraine. So you signed a letter, okay? You signed a letter indicating that this prosecutor should be fired, and then fast forward to today, and you decide, oh no, it's not a politically convenient thing to bring that up. So let me go ahead and tell William Barr that he needs to launch an investigation into the Bidens because Biden executed what I encouraged him to execute. It's disgusting. This is who Republicans are. And on the left, you have these insanely weak, feckless lawmakers who don't know what they're doing. And so the criminality continues and it remains unchecked.
On Wednesday, the senators are going to start to ask questions of each side. Are we going to get any Democratic senators to ask, hey, Ms. Bondi, you talked about corruption in Ukraine. That was a big part of your testimony on behalf of the Trump legal team. So why did you take that $25,000 from the Trump Foundation? Was that a bribe? And is that why you dropped the case?
I guarantee you, anyone who asks that question will be admonished, right? Chief Justice Roberts admonished both sides because he felt that both Democrats and Republicans weren't being appropriate to one another during the Senate impeachment trial.
Yeah.
So you're not even allowed to bring up evidence, including a $25,000 bribe that Pam Bondi took.
And by the way, why do none of the Democrats call it a bribe?
Because they take bribes too.
Because they also take campaign contributions from folks like that. In fact, Trump gave campaign donations to some of the Democrats that are still in office. So that's why they're reluctant to say when Trump gives a donation, it's a bribe. And by the way, the only person who actually went close to saying that was Donald Trump himself. When he was on the stage with the other Republican nominees during the 2016 primary, he said, I gave all these guys money and they did whatever I wanted them to do. And that's why he won, because people were like, that's obviously true. But yet none of the Democrats will call him out for on it, because they took his money too. And they take all the corporate money and all the lobbyist money. And this is how this disgusting carousel goes round and round.
Don't miss your chance to win a trip to Los Angeles and have dinner with Cenk, John, and me. Just head to tyt.com/dinnerinla to register to win. Sign up for a free Aspirations Spend and Save account. Then you just register your eligibility and swipe your Aspiration card daily on purchases to gain entries. Not only are you entering to win a trip to Los Angeles and dinner with TYT hosts, you're also not depositing your hard-earned money into fossil fuel exploration or production. As a friendly reminder, even if you already have an Aspiration account, you must still register for eligibility into the sweepstakes.